Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and the 5-year anniversary AMA video that they asked for submissions for has been released. It's a 16-minute video, and it's actually very entertaining to watch. Much like the last video, this is a really interesting, especially for a longtime veteran player, this is a really interesting look into a 5-year-old game. It feels like a look behind the scenes. It feels like a lot of validation for us who have been begging and really asking them for more communication and for acknowledgement of the flaws of the game and what they're doing to actually improve the game. So a lot of people are going to like this. Some people are going to think that the video is still very produced and doesn't actually answer a lot of hardcore questions. And yeah, in a way that's true. You can't go and make a 16-minute video where you're just like, yeah, guys, the drop rates suck. This is bad. You know, you can't do that. No company no company does that. No one does that, whether you're Korean or American or Canadian or whatever. I think this is a really good start, and there are some really good answers in here that we can sort of use not only to roadmap the future of the game, but to hold them accountable for it, because this is actually the one of the producers, or the lead producer for Marvel Future Fight, and he actually explains right in the beginning what his job is in a sort of general sense. So, you know, getting specific answers, getting specific details, like, you know, when is this coming out, when is this going to happen, that sort of stuff, we will never get answers on, right? Because that would be like asking Marvel, you know, what day is the Doctor Strange movie going to land, right? They're not going to give you that date, that specific date, until the movie is completely finalized and they're ready for it, right? That's a whole marketing thing. Like, again, no company would do that thing. So you gotta go into these videos, you gotta watch these sorts of things with an open mind, but also with the idea that, you know, most of this stuff is pre-produced, this stuff is pre-planned, the questions are pre-chosen, so most of this is just for show and for presentation. But it is still a 16-minute video that they did for us that they didn't have to do, right? They could have done anything else. They could have spent this money and had a big party for themselves, but they decided to do this. Also, shout out to the host here, Jin. She does an amazing job. She has some really hilarious reactions. I obviously can't play the full video, but you should watch it for yourself with English subtitles. She really, like, she kind of grills him at times, and it's really, really funny. So right at the beginning, she introduces herself. She's Jin, and then we get the main producer here. Went way too fast. Or sorry, Jinnie, not Jin. Her name's Jinnie. His name is Yoo-jung Kim Yoo-jung. It's blocked by the English subtitles. So he is the main producer for Marvel Future Fight. So as it goes along, he introduces what he does, and basically he oversees the selection of updates, the theme of the update, the direction that the update is going to take as far as characters, uniforms, game mode, content, stuff like that, and then balance adjustments. So apparently, if we're taking this guy at his word, and why wouldn't we, he has a major hand in Marvel Future Fight updates, for better and for worse. So I don't know if we can, again, directly pin decisions on him, but he seems like he's very high up in the company. I've never personally met him, so I don't know him, and I've never interacted with him, so I can't comment on that. But he seems like a pretty nice person. Seems, you know, fairly genuine, a little bit reserved, but at the same time, he does admit that this is the first time he's done something like this, so he does come off a little nervous, and it's actually really funny because if you fast forward, so she says, Jinnie says a lot of really nice, Jinnie, she says a lot of really nice things about the players, but then at one point they prepare sort of like it's like an AMA, right? And so she's like, okay, let's do it. And then
준비되셨습니까? 네, 사실 좀 긴장이 좀 많이 불편하신 자리 같은데 아니죠? 오늘 축하하는 자리에서 이렇게 좀 오픈 마인드로 하는.
So she's really funny. She injects a lot of energy into the video, and she does a really good job as the host and sort of, you know, going through the questions, but she also does a really good job of sort of putting him on the spot, which is really funny. And I think it's something that a lot of you would have wanted to do had you been in that position for Jinnie. So I have to give a huge shout out and huge thank you to Jinnie. This is amazing. And then she asks him if he's nervous. He says he's nervous. He's done this before. And so here's the really nice thing. Again, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can take everything they're saying with 100% accuracy, but it's at least nice that they're saying it. So she says she's prepared various questions. Sure, he's probably seen the questions, but she says, "Are you willing to give 100% honest answers?" And he's like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that." Okay, so it's pretty interesting. So then they go into questions from the Netmarble monster star agents. So like me, this is Absolute Gaming, aka Blue 0317. Probably some of you guys watch him, so you recognize his face, you recognize his voice. And his question, it's not really so much a question, but it's essentially it's a request. And his request is that when characters are given uniforms in order to rework the character, that their power level in the comics should be looked at and should be considered when the uniform is given. And I think what Absolute Gaming is basically trying to say is that we have a lot of comic, like, a lot of classic, iconic characters from the comics who basically came to Marvel Future Fight in the first year or in the second year, and they've since been sort of left in the dust. So if you start from the bottom, like Ultron, you've got characters like Hela, both of the Ghost Riders, you've got Black Bolt. You've got a lot of these characters, Daredevil, Yellow Jacket, Mantis, even Malekith. He can spar with Thor, right? He's supposed to be really strong. MODOK, right? Lash, Caecilius, Enchantress, Venom, Carnage, all of the heroes for hire, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Blade, so of course Dormammu, Odin, Adam Warlock. And we're basically, as the players, we're worried that when these characters get their uniforms in the future, that those uniforms are not going to accurately reflect these characters' power levels from the comics. Because we have seen some characters get uniforms, and it just doesn't really do enough for the character to bring them up and to really put them where they should be. And then, with every uniform that passes, you sort of feel like this could be the only time, right? Like we're never going to get another uniform for this character. Sometimes they get it right and the character gets a really good uniform, and then sometimes they get it wrong and you're just like, well, I guess this is just the best we can hope for. Like, that's it, right? So yeah, pretty good question from Baloo. The answer is not really that helpful, because they're basically just saying what they've already said. They recognize that there are some really powerful heroes in the game like Odin and Dormammu. They keep going back to Odin and Dormammu, so I think it's a really big sign that they're going to be reworking these characters, but I can't promise it. If you have the extra resources and you don't have other native tier 2s to work on, could you start stockpiling your resources for Odin and Dormammu? Sure. Should you start ranking them up now? No. There's absolutely no incentive to pre-build a character in Marvel Future Fight. Whether you build the character today or whether you build the character one day before or even one day after the update, there is literally zero incentive unless the character has their potential unlockable, which these characters don't. If the character's potential was unlockable and you thought maybe they were going to get a tier 3, like Hulk or something like that, then you could start working on them now and then unlock that potential now. But otherwise, there's no point. Just stockpile 9,000 black antimatter, actually more. Stockpile, 1,500 Chaos Nordstones, and like 100 million gold. It's not that much. But yeah, he basically says, we understand there's characters that are weak, they're underutilized in the game. We can't say when or how we're going to be reworking these characters, but we are. And of course, they can't give us these exact details, guys. But Jinnie comes in the clutch again, and she basically just grills him for his answer.
좀 다소 시원하지는 못한 답변이었지 않았나라는 생각이 드는데, 왜냐면 이제 유저분들 입장에서는 일단 잘해야 되는구나라는 생각을 하지 않을까 싶어요.
Now, I don't know, I have to say, I don't know if this is sort of a style of interview where the interviewer is very hard on the interviewee in order to make them seem more sympathetic. I don't know if this is like a strategy where she's like supposed to be really hard on him, and so we sort of feel bad for him, and so we don't really take too much of a critical stance towards his words and his answers, because she's sort of doing that for us preemptively. It's sort of like if you're in a rap battle and then Rabbit makes fun of himself, suddenly you can't make fun of Rabbit, so then you kind of just lose your edge and lose your steal. I don't know, or maybe they didn't plan that and she's just really, really good at her job. Who knows? But she's killing it. She's like knocking it out of the park. So then he mentions the surveys. A lot of this video boils down to sort of like half answers and then pointing to things that they've already done. So in a way, it can sort of feel like they're patting themselves on the back, like, oh guys, you wanted more Mandalay gem fragments? Oh, we fixed that already. But there are some genuine answers in here. So yeah, he sort of gives her the runaround again, but he says, we're gonna be doing things and we need to improve things when it comes to characters. Then they look at this clown and they answer one of this clown's questions. My question was regarding, actually, well, I don't want to play this one, but anyways, I can just summarize my question. It was regarding communication and the lack of communication, specifically from people who had, wow, that look was just terrifying. Anyways, basically the lack of communication in the game between the players and between people who actually have a hand in playing the game. A lot of times CM Fragment does the best that he or she can do. The social media team, the people who translate the patch notes. But ultimately, as players, we look at other games and we see developer notes. We see developer interaction. You see Contest of Champions, and the developers are in the live stream talking to the players. I know there's a language barrier, but come on, you can do more for us, right? We're a big game. This is Marvel Future Fight. We've been around for 5 years. Marvel Strike Force is doing live showings, live closed server showings of new content with select members of the content creator community like Valley Flyin and Casino, and they're in the video talking with them as they're testing out the new content, right? So imagine myself and another star agent or another big YouTuber that covers Marvel Future Fight. We are trying out Danger Room for the first time. Let's go back in time or whatever. Or we're trying out Danger Room Extreme. And at the same time, one of the producers of the game and maybe a translator if they need it are there, with us talking about it and explaining why they chose to do certain things and like that kind of stuff, right? This is the level of quality that we are expecting from a 5-year-old game that is trying to live up to this hype of being like a AAA quality mobile game. If you just want to be an average mobile game, okay, but you want to hang with the big boys, you got to do the big boy stuff. And so one of those things is communication. So how do you plan to facilitate communication with users from now on? So here is his answer to my question.
이 부분에 대한 답변 부탁드릴게요.
저도 이제 커뮤니케이션이 좀 부족했던 부분에 대해서 되게 아쉽게 생각을 하고 있고, 그러니까 얼마 전에
So he sort of apologizes and he says that we started to make post developer notes, and yes, they did post developer notes regarding the striker changes. They posted notes when they did the change originally, right, that we had with the Hydra update, and then we hated that. So then they updated the notes again to say they were taking it away, but then they also let us know that they were going to be thinking of something in the future, and it was not going to be left alone. It will be changed again. And then of course for the 5-year anniversary, it was changed again, and they did provide notes and explain why that was changed. So that is good, but don't get ahead of yourselves, right? Don't celebrate one thing. You guys did developer notes for one aspect of the game. Where are the developer notes for how bad Timeline Battle is, how bad the rewards are, and how bad the gameplay is, and how you don't have to use any of your roster? Where are, like, you barely have to use any of your roster. Where are the developer notes for how bad Alliance Conquest rewards are, and why you haven't improved the core gameplay of Alliance Conquest or Alliance Tournament or Alliance Battle Extreme? The list goes on and on, okay? So we started to make post developer notes. And then he also says they're going to continue to explore various methods to see about players' feedback, problems, and discuss future plans. Right? So he doesn't really say anything. He doesn't really address the question at all. So, okay, I'm not surprised. And then there's a question from Starco. The question from Starco, I actually don't remember. Oh, yeah. Sorry. The question is about how they come up with updates. And again, there's just not a lot that they can share. They do give us an interesting timeline for it, however, that they start about 6 months prior to an update landing. So, if House of X came out in March, so we're talking, March, February, January, December, November, October. So somewhere in September or October, they had the idea for the House of X update. That's pretty crazy. That's like around the time that it was dropping, right? The comics were dropping, I believe. So they were right there. And then so they communicate with Marvel and figure it out. And then 6 months in advance, they communicate with Marvel. And then actual development starts about 3 or 4 months. So it's really difficult for us to conceptualize because we only see these updates as they land. But as they land, they had already started doing them 4 months prior. So it's crazy, but think about this. When we were panicking over the Gwenpool and when we were rioting over the Gwenpool, Deadpool holiday uniforms, they were working on the Black Widow update. Yeah, that's how far ahead it is. So it's pretty like mind trippy, and it's a bit of a mind screw, but yeah. And then we have another question here from another user. I don't know if this is a star agent, or I apologize if I don't know who this is. I don't know if this is a star agent or if this is just a user, because they don't give us a name. They don't give us a star agent name. But then the question is regarding, I actually don't know what the question is regarding. They talk about the baby. What is the question exactly? Yes, they talk about the baby. It's quite candid, actually. The reactions are quite candid. Oh, yes, Alliance Conquest. So this was actually a really good question. I was actually surprised that they answered this question. So the guy asks, you know, Alliance Conquest takes too long to play. It's a 2-hour phase that you have to do 3 times a day for 4 days. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, no other mobile game asks for that much time where you just sit there and stare at your screen for the majority of it anyways. It's not like you're constantly playing for 2 hours, which may justify the length, but you're literally just sitting there waiting for something to happen. It's like fishing. It's awful, but you have to get 40 people, 120 people to fish at the same time. So he complains, the person complains, and she reiterates his complaint that it takes too long to play Alliance Conquest, and then he pats himself on the back. We just improved the rewards for Alliance Conquest. Buddy, you barely improved the rewards. Barely. Okay, doubling the gold is not a good reward. 4 million gold for working hard for a week? Yeah, no, you got to be kidding me. And then the interesting thing is they go on to say we are planning a more fundamental set of improvements for Conquest. Fundamental improvements. That sounds nice to me. I think that is what we need to see for these game modes. We need fundamental improvements to, you know, Timeline Battle, Alliance Tournament, Alliance Battle Extreme, Alliance Conquest. All that stuff needs like a top to bottom complete facelift. It needs to look like a completely new game mode. It cannot just have small spot fixes. So she goes back and she doubles back on the question. She's like, bro, are you going to reduce the time it takes to play Conquest? And he says, yeah, we're looking to improve on that too. So hopefully, I mean, maybe, who knows? Maybe by the end of the year, I'll be playing Alliance Conquest. If Alliance Conquest turns into like a 1-hour thing once a day for, you know, 2 or 3 days, and if it is, you know, 1 versus 1 alliances, and if it's not autoplay, if it's manually played, and if it's got, you know, interesting tactics, I would love to play Conquest, because Conquest is actually the game mode where you use your entire roster, or at least most of it. But it's kind of like Shadowland for PvP, but it's still just not quite there yet. So it'll be interesting to see. I always look forward to reworks for Conquest because I do believe Conquest could be a really, really good game mode. And then we have a question from K-Dash, who's a Korean star agent. He asks about Marvel Future Revolution, which I'm not quite sure why they fielded this question, but essentially it was to answer whether Marvel Future Revolution is going to have a negative impact on Marvel Future Fight. And he says no, it's not going to have an impact on the service of Marvel Future Fight. When Marvel Future Revolution comes out, it's not going to make Marvel Future Fight close down or anything like that. The two games are supposed to, you know, be active and live simultaneously, like Realm of Champions and Contest of Champions. They're making a lot of money on this game. They wouldn't just shut it down and hope that we all move to Future Revolution. That's not how it works. Plus, it's not like we would move to Future Revolution and spend more money. So it would make more sense and it would be safer financially for them to keep us in Marvel Future Fight and keep us happy, so we would keep spending in Marvel Future Fight. So yeah, that was the interesting thing there. They talk about our feedback, and then they do some more questions that they received from the community, and she basically pulls them out of this box. And then she asks. So she talks about future updates for Marvel Future Fight, and he doesn't really give an answer. He just says, like, there's going to be uniforms, characters, and tier 3s. No way, really? Your update's going to have tier 3 characters? I could have never guessed that. So that's pretty funny. And then, sure, second question. Oh, no, he also alludes to, this one's kind of interesting. I want to play this one so you guys can listen to this.
마찬가지로 유저들이 원하는 캐릭터를 활용을 해서 직접 진행할 수 있도록 하는 방안까지 고민을 하고 있습니다.
So this one struck me as kind of interesting because he talks about story mode. He wasn't prompted to talk about story mode, but he does talk about story mode. We're taking into consideration to how to allow players to use the characters they desire and play it themselves the way they want to play. So to me, that sounds like they're experimenting with things like what they did in story mode, where you can use different skills and you can equip different skills on a uniform. There's another thing that a lot of players have been asking for a long time, which is allowing us to choose which uniform we want, regardless of what skills we're using. So maybe I want Captain America to look like Civil War, but I want him to use the Hydra Cap skills. So we'll see if maybe that becomes a feature in the future. That would be a really amazing quality of life thing. It doesn't actually improve the game. It just makes it more fun to sort of mix and match your characters the way that you want them to look and feel, and it gives you a more personalized RPG experience. It would be an awesome update, but I don't think it's going to, you know, lift the game up from where it is to where it needs to be as far as like content and game modes are concerned. Then she talks about the current reward systems being focused on new and returning players. This actually killed me. that they actually went and asked this question because it's so true. And she says, are there plans to improve the rewards for veteran players? This is like straight out of my brain, okay? She's like, she's pulling these things out of my wish list, my diary. Okay, so check out his answer.
그 얼마 전 업데이트를 통해서도 이제 베테랑 유저들이 많이 즐기시는 뭐 얼라이언스 배틀 극한 모드나 혹은 뭐 섀도우랜드 보상.
Okay, so he starts off by patting himself on the back and saying that they recently improved the rewards for ABX and Shadowland. Listen, no you didn't. Don't lie to yourselves. Some of the rewards for Alliance Battle Extreme were good, but most of them were a joke. And then Shadowland, you did not go far enough. But he does say that veteran players enjoy Shadowland and ABX the most, which is, I think, an accurate statement. But then he goes on to say, this is interesting, we haven't made reward improvements for all players. We'll take into consideration which content and what kinds of rewards our players will be satisfied and improve from there. So it seems like they're listening. It seems like they're going to be looking forward to, you know, what we have to say and then taking that into consideration. Then they go on to say it's difficult to cater the rewards for all players. And then this is actually a really funny interaction. She pulls up another question and it's basically the same thing.
개편해줬으면 좋겠습니다. 다양한 보상을 좀 획득할 수 있게 해주세요. 자, 이번에도 보상 개편에 대한 굉장히
So she's like really getting on his case about reworking the rewards. Give us a better answer. So he said the Shadowland, this is quite good actually. The Shadowland rewards were improved slightly with the recent update.
업데이트에서 살짝 개선을 하긴 했는데 부족한 부분도
But I
있고.
think the result was a bit lackluster. Yes, you know what? Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was lackluster. You're absolutely right. Yes, it was.
콘텐츠 자체가 시간도 많이
The Shadowland mode itself requires a bit of time and can be very tiring. So then they talk about autoplay. Oh gosh. Okay, listen. Shadowland takes a long time because you guys decided to make it infinite. You guys decided to make it infinite, not us. Shadowland can be tiring because you guys don't want to give us any new stages for Shadowland. Again, the problems are not with the players. The problems are with the developers. You guys don't want to put any new Shadowland stages. We've had the same 42 stages for like 3 years. That's a fault of the developers. That's your fault. That's not our fault, right? It's not tiring for us because you guys, right? Why don't I make you read the same 42 pages of a comic for 3 years? You'll blow your brains out. You'll be bored as hell. And then what are you going to say? The comic was bad? No, the comic's not bad. It's not my fault. You know, I mean, it's my fault for giving you the same 42 pages, but it's not your fault for having to read them if I'm forcing you to. So just give us more comics, man. Just give us more Shadowland stages. So yeah, we're going to do our best to improve, to look forward to conveniences and reward improvements. Okay, that's good. And then they talk about Danger Room being in beta phase, which is pretty interesting. And he gives a pretty interesting take on what he wants Danger Room to be. This is one of the things that I like the most about Developer Insights, is trying to figure out what the developers wanted us to experience with new game modes. Because with any game, whether it's like the full game, like Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda, or whether it's like a game mode in a game, for example, you know, Alliance Conquest or whatever, what were the developers trying to design? What kind of experience were they wanting us to get out of it? So he gives an answer on what that is.
어떻게 될까요?
그 데인저룸 콘텐츠의 이제 의도는 이제 실시간으로 전투를 진행을 하면서 다른
Cooperating and competing with others in real time.
거에 재미를 좀 느꼈으면 좋겠다는 의도에서 이제 개발을 하게 됐어요.
So yeah, that's true.
근데 생각했던 거
But he says the response was disappointing. Yeah, Danger Room was met with a lot of disappointing answers. Until it's at a level that the players are happy with, we are testing it in many different ways. So that is true. That does ring true. They have been tinkering a lot with Danger Room. He says sooner rather than later, which is really nice. It sounds like it'll be before the end of the year. We're going to showcase an improved version of Danger Room through an update. So I don't know if that's an improved version for normal Danger Room or if that's an improved version for Danger Room Extreme. And then they just talk about how they love the game and yada yada yada, and it's just some cute stuff between the two of them. They talk about squad battle and that the rewards aren't that good, and then of course they talk about how they already improved the Mandalay gem fragments, which they've already done, and then they I think they wrap it up from here, and then they do some sort of thing at the end where they you know, have a little thing here with people saying how much they love the game, and some Star Agent stuff there. So with that being said, it was a pretty interesting video. I tried to summarize the key points regarding the answers to questions that players asked, because of course those players are you and I in the community. So hit me up in the comments down below. Watch the video if you can, and then maybe provide more insight based on that, because it does help to watch the full video. I tried to do my best here, but of course the only way to get the full experience is obviously to listen and watch the whole thing, see their reactions, and to read the subtitles as best as you can if you don't understand Korean. But I like this sort of thing. I think they need to do more of this, and I think by them doing these sorts of things and putting themselves out there, they are going to realize not only how many fans they have and how passionate we are, but they are also going to be listening more closely, because it's hard to do these kinds of things in a manufactured, produced way and not let it affect you and affect your decision making. Obviously, they're still going to have their own best interests in mind, which is, you know, lining their pockets and making money. But hopefully these sort of things soften them up a bit. He does say in the video that it's the first time he's actually heard directly from players and what they think. I mean, of course, Jinnie is, you know, rephrasing things, but it's obviously being put in a much more realistic package than what he's probably used to hearing from people around him in his circle or in his team, who are going to sort of cater the questions and the feedback to something that's a little bit more gentle. You don't want to tell your boss, right? You don't want to go up to your boss and be like, hey, listen, the rewards are not good, right? So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I love these sorts of things. I think it's awesome for the game. It's great for the future of the game. I love it. And hopefully we will see more of this, and hopefully we will see what they're talking about with the next update and updates to come throughout the rest of the year. Hit me up in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.